Welcome to today's English podcast. I want to start this episode with a confession. I forget English words all the time. I study them, I write them, I repeat them, and then they disappear. I read a word today, I understand it, and tomorrow I don't remember it anymore. This makes me feel frustrated, tired, and sometimes stupid. Many people think learning vocabulary is just memorizing lists, but for me, it feels like fighting my own brain. Today, I'm talking with an English teacher who has more than 15 years of experience. He has seen thousands of students struggle with vocabulary, just like me. I really need answers today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. And I want to say something first. If you forget English words, there is nothing wrong with you. Forgetting is normal. The problem is not your memory. The problem is how vocabulary is usually learned. That sentence describes my life. I study vocabulary. I feel good for a moment. Then, when I want to speak, my mind is empty. I know the word exists, but I can't find it. Why does this happen? Because most students try to memorize words without meaning, without emotion, and without context. The brain doesn't remember isolated information very well. It remembers stories, situations, and repetition over time. When you study 10 words in 5 minutes, your brain understands them, but it doesn't store them. Understanding is not the same as memorizing. That hurts, but it's true. Many people say you need to memorize more words. Is that true? That's one of the biggest lies in language learning. You don't need more words. You need fewer words used many times. Native speakers don't use thousands of words every day. They use the same words again and again in different situations. Students try to learn too much, too fast. The brain becomes overwhelmed and stop remembering. So, learning more is actually making it worse? Okay. I use vocabulary lists a lot. Long lists. And honestly, I hate them. You are not alone. Lists are one of the least effective ways to memorize vocabulary long term. Lists don't create connection, they create pressure. You see a word, you translate it, you move on. There's no emotion, no image, no reason for the brain to keep it. That explains why everything disappears after a few days. A word without context is like a phone number without a name. You may see it, but you won't remember it. Words live inside sentences, situations, and emotions. When you learn a word inside a real sentence, your brain creates more connections. That makes the word stronger in your memory. So, memorizing single words is the mistake. I remember something. When I learn a word, from a movie or a podcast, I remember it better. But when I learn it from a list, I forget it. That's a perfect example. When you hear a word in a real situation, your brain connects it with sound, emotion, and context. That's how memory works naturally. I say this with my students all the time. Vocabulary learned emotionally stays. Vocabulary learned mechanically disappears. I translate everything into my language. Is that a problem? At the beginning, translation is normal. But if you depend on it too much, it becomes a problem. Translation creates an extra step in your brain. You hear the word, translate it, and then understand it. That slows you down and weakens memory. It's better to connect English words with images, situations, or feelings, not with your native language all the time. That sounds difficult, but it makes sense. People say repeat, repeat, repeat. I repeat a lot, but I still forget because repetition without variation is boring for the brain. Saying a word 10 times is not the same as using it 10 times in different sentences. The brain loves patterns, but it also loves novelty. You need both. And what are the most common mistakes students make? Learning too many words at once, studying only once, not reviewing, not using the words, waiting to be perfect before speaking, and studying vocabulary without emotion. Most people treat vocabulary like math, but language is not math, it's human. So, forgetting is not failure. No, forgetting is part of learning. Memory works in cycles. You forget, you review, you remember again, and the word becomes stronger. The real failure is giving up because you think you are bad at languages. This conversation already makes me feel calmer. Maybe the problem is not my memory, but my method. Exactly. And we need to talk about what really works: simple routines, modern techniques, and realistic ways to memorize vocabulary without stress. Yeah, because I really want to remember words and use them. I realized something important. Maybe I'm not bad at memorizing vocabulary. Maybe I'm just using the wrong methods. Now I want to know what really works. Not theory, not perfect systems, but real techniques that normal people can use every day. That's the right question. Because the goal is not to remember words for one day, the goal is to remember them for life. And that requires a different mindset. The most important thing to understand is this: the brain memorizes what it uses, not what it studies. If you see a word once, the brain thinks it's not important. If you use a word many times, the brain says, okay, this matters. That's why students who speak more remember more vocabulary. Even if their grammar is not perfect, use creates memory. That explains why some people speak with mistakes but remember many words. One of the best techniques is learning vocabulary inside very simple sentences, not complex sentences. Simple ones that you can repeat and change. For example, instead of learning the word decision alone, learn I need to make a decision. Then change it. I made a decision. It's a difficult decision. Now the word lives in your brain. Many teachers say, write the words many times. Does that help? Writing can help, but only if it has meaning. Writing a word 10 times without thinking doesn't work. Writing one sentence with emotion works much better. For example, write a sentence about your life, something true, something personal. Emotion creates memory. So the word becomes part of my story. Exactly. Speaking is the strongest way to memorize vocabulary. When you say a word out loud, your brain hears it, your mouth produces it, and your body feels it. That creates strong connections. Many students avoid speaking because they are afraid, but avoiding speaking is the fastest way to forget vocabulary. Another big mistake is waiting to feel ready. People say, I will use this word when I'm confident. But confidence comes after use, not before. Use the word even if it feels uncomfortable. That discomfort means learning is happening. How many words should someone learn per day? Fewer than you think. 5 good words used many times are better than 20 forgotten words. Quality beats quantity. Choose words you see often, words you hear in podcasts, videos, or conversations. Those words will appear again, and repetition will happen naturally. What about reviewing? I forget to review. Review is essential, but it doesn't need to be stressful. Review means sing the word again after one day, then after a few days, then after a week. You don't need complicated apps. Just expose yourself to English often. Podcast, videos, reading. The words will come back. Memory strengthens with time and repetition. I use apps, but sometimes they don't help much. Apps are tools, not solutions. They help with exposure. But if you don't use the words in real life, the memory stays weak. Apps work best when they support real use, not replace it. Can you describe a simple daily routine? Yes, very simple. Listen to English for 10 to 15 minutes. Choose 3 to 5 words you hear often. Create one simple sentence with each other. Say the sentence out loud. Use at least one word during the day, even talking to yourself. Another important advice: accept that you will not remember everything. Native speakers forget words too. Language is not about control, it's about communication. When you stop trying to control memory, memory improves. Listening to you, I feel less pressure. Good. Pressure kills memory. Curiosity fits it. Enjoy words, play with them, make mistakes. That's how children learn. And it works for adults too. So, memorizing vocabulary is not about having a strong memory, it's about having a smart relationship with words. Exactly. Vocabulary grows when you live with the language, not when you fight it. If you could give one final message to students who feel frustrated, like me, what could it be? I would say this: stop trying to memorize English, start using it. Forgetting is not failure, silence is. Every word you use stays longer, every word you avoid disappears. And remember, you don't need perfect memory to speak English. You need courage to use the words you already know. And I would like to know, what method do you use to memorize vocabulary?